Very sick. Dito na tingin. Thank you. Nasaan tayo? Take this. Wala pa rin yung speaker. Sino pang sige. Si Lisa na nasa assurance sa pakikinig.
I'm listening. I'm just gonna listen.
Yeah. Ayun, Hazel, wala.
Hi. I'm here.
Nice to meet you. I'm from the University of Miami School of Law. I'm actually working with John Leo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Intern.
Are you?
Yep, my very first graduate.
That's in Kia. He is one of the members of the steering committee.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I'm also a lawyer.
Okay.
But I'm
Taking look.
I'm taking law.
Yep, I'm in my second year.
Ah, law.
Yeah, thank you.
How you find it?
It's overwhelming, exhausting, but it's a lot of energy, you know, I don't. It's combat, I've heard it's.
Is it to your expectations or?
I've heard that these jobs are really more unorganized than other ones. So I don't know, I really don't know exactly what to expect, but. So it's definitely been interesting. What I will say,
Yeah,
how many of you have just so far?
I'm one of what they would say the dinosaurs. You know.
Okay.
That's my, I haven't gone to all the. Yeah,
You said either.
but my first stop is called.
Okay.
So we're now in the 20s.
Yeah, so I'm saying you.
Yeah, well, but, yeah.
Thank you. For being there.
So. I'm in the last. Year.
So we're. Okay.
So it's the same, so we. First finance.
Yeah.
Everything is like in all of the words. They will always be some kind of finance.
So, bali,
So this, I found out.
Yes. So, perspective. Afternoon. We'll be starting our media briefing on the NGOs on the road to just transition.
at global and Philippine levels. On October 1, 2024, the Philippine government formally launched the process of developing the National Just Transition Program. With the impacts of the climate crisis becoming clearer to Filipinos and the urgency of pursuing sustainable development, paving the road to a low emissions, climate resilient society and economy is critical to ensure that no one is left behind. Just transition is also one of the critical issues to be addressed at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, which would affect the country's corresponding program. And during the second week of COP29, Philippine representatives from the agriculture, energy, labor, transport, and waste sectors would present their calls and demands to the Philippine government and participate to the ongoing climate negotiations for what just transition should be. Today in our press briefing, we will be joined by Mr. Ray Panaligan of the Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainable Technology. We're still waiting if Ms. Hazel from Rice Watch Action Network will be joining us via Zoom. We have also Dr. Rafael Abacan, a representative from the Workers for Just Transition. And online would be Ms. Elisa Belda, Secretary General of Ubas One Coalition, and Mr. Cheng Pagulayan, Climate Justice Portfolio Manager of Oxfam Filipinas. I'm Rodney Galicia of Action Team of Filipinas Rating. I'll be calling first Mr. Ray Panaligan to present and to share his views.
Thank you, Rodney, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm speaking on behalf of the Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainable Technology, and the perspective that I want to share is coming from the energy sector. But of course, before we deep dive in what's happening or how we can advance just transition in the Philippines, we are still we know that we're already at the end game of COP29, and there's still much has to be done. Of course, we want this COP29 to be very successful. And at the heart of the negotiation is, of course, the just NCQG that will be able to support developing countries. So, of course, we understand how important climate finance in terms of supporting developing countries to be able to implement just transition and towards decarbonizing their own industries and their own economy. Without any financial support, this will be a very difficult task for many developing countries to really implement just transition. So we still have a few days left, and basically our message is that developed countries should pay up, and of course encouraging the Philippine delegation and all delegations from developing countries to stand up and fight that the NCQG should be just and favorable for developing countries. And we also want to hold accountable developed countries and for them to pay their climate debt. Going to my next factor, and this is very important as well, is that ensuring that for us to be able to have a just transition, to ensure that the quality of finance is really favorable for developing countries. And that's the reason why one of the main goals in this NCQG is that at its core, it's supposed to be public financing. It's very difficult, and we had very bad experiences already, not only in the Philippines, but in Southeast Asia, where decarbonization or transition partnerships have been a source of loans and debt traps to developing countries. We've seen how just energy transition partnership are being implemented in our neighboring countries in Vietnam and Indonesia, and these are mostly loans that debt-ridden and will give additional problems to host countries. And we don't want that in the Philippines. We already have that kind of such experience. Like, for example, before that we have implemented this energy efficiency project, which is a loan package in ADB. And we don't want those kind of financial support for us to be able to transition from a high carbon industry to a low carbon economy. So again, it's very important that climate finance should be able to be provided by developed countries so that our countries like the Philippines will be able to really implement just transition. And of course, we want any just transition to really go into shifting to renewables. It's not a transition from coal to gas, which we also see happening in Southeast Asia. So again, just transition of the energy sector should be decarbonizing, shifting away from coal and going straight to renewables. There's no room for additional fossil fuels especially in the context of achieving 1.5 degrees global temperature. And then, of course, a very important context is that the principles of do no harm. We want that transition should not cause additional harm to our communities, indigenous peoples, and our ecosystems. So whether it's a renewable energy, these new projects must be able to support our environment and also ensure that no communities will be displaced or will be aggravated. And basically, at the very heart of a just transition is really that no one is left behind. And I think this is the fundamental, one of the fundamental concepts of a just transition, which is everyone should be part of the discussion, of the dialogue, in the planning, the women, the youth, the workers, and of course the host communities. So every projects, whether it's in renewable energy or energy efficiency projects, everyone should be part of the decision-making processes. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the workers sector, we'll have Dr. Abakan. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, and good afternoon also. Well, actually, no, it's good afternoon already to everyone here. Greetings from the Workers for Just Transition and for myself, the Bugluran ng Manggagawang Pilipino. So we have been observing the process of the COP29, and we've also been observing the slow to no movement in negotiations, the deadlock towards achieving what we believe to be the most important element in this COP, which is climate finance. We are one with all of the global south, all of the workers, all of the CSOs in calling for adequate amount. The numbers vary across groups, but for us, we call on $5 trillion for just transition, mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage. This conversation of just transition involves the entire world, and we don't believe that just transition means green capitalism. It doesn't mean CSR. It means a radical change of how goods are produced in our society for human needs, for life, rather than for profit. It is a biocentric approach, and then we firmly uphold that workers and all oppressed peoples are the ones to lead the change. We are one with all of the groups here in calling for increased breadth and depth of public services, public healthcare, public housing, all public services, in the context of increased privatization, increased monopolization of all of the means of productions in society. We are one for green job creation and democratization of all of these elements in our society. So for us, we are one in solidarity with all of the global south in calling for cancellation of debts and calling for financing that does not cause more debts, in a country that, such as the Philippines, has been faced with a constant barrage of unprecedented storms and catastrophes. Enough is enough, really, truly. We are behind our own country delegation calling for a push. And we're here also to add pressure to the global north to pay up. It's time to pay up for climate finance. And also for the global south to reject any moves by the global north from imperialist countries to break up their solidarity, and reject also any moves to be bribed away from pushing for the united call of all the global south countries for the global north to pay up for its historic debt to all of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Joining us online is Ms. Elisa Belda, representing the transport and mobility sector from Movers One Coalition. Lisa.
Hello. Am I audible? I'm Alyssa. I'm from the Movers One Coalition. My team. Okay. Representing 140 organizations advocating for safe, humane, inclusive transport systems, with sectoral representatives from commuters, persons with disabilities, transport workers, environmentalists, planners, and more. We are a youth-powered coalition. We believe that the youth will inherit our planet. Regardless of institutional inaction, the Filipino young leaders, our nation's inheritors of urban and environmental realities, have already been doing initiatives to help build sustainable climate resilient cities. We, the youth, are doing our part. It is time for our national and global leaders to do the same. The Philippines contributes the least to global greenhouse emissions, pero we're one of the world's most at-risk country for climate-induced disasters. Our cities are the front lines of climate impact, and a critical need for global justice is substantial, and immediate action is clear. In ensuring that just transition is possible, we emphasize that we need a public transport budget implementation that is more focused on the specific key components of PTFP, or the Public Transport Modernization Program, such as the conduct of route rationalization route studies and strengthening of local capacities for LGUs or local governments to create their local public transport route plans. And it's also pertinent that there's funding for service contracting, as there are critical and urgent investments in road sector programs that can alleviate the daily and unsafe, undignified experiences of the commuting public in order for our public transport systems to be more efficient. And service contracting also enables transport operators and drivers to sustain their operations and remain financially viable at a time when fares remain low and operating costs and travel demand are unstable and highly variable. So in decarbonizing our transport systems, we need to acknowledge that energy is a resource that must be used efficiently. It is true that the transport sector contributes a significant part of emissions, but that is not enough compared to the volume of private cars and other transport modes that can be made more efficiently. Currently, we have 73 jeepneys operating in Metro Manila, 73,000 jeepneys in Metro Manila, and 300,000 nationwide, constituting approximately 3% only of the total number of vehicles, both in Metro Manila and nationwide. This tells us that even if we convert all our jeepneys, all our public transport into so-called modern jeepney units, it fails to address the other 97%. That is why more than just transition for workers, we also advocate for genuine transport systems and infrastructure that are climate resilient. And it means active transport infrastructure that is also green infrastructure. Because what makes walking and cycling are trees, green spaces, and safe pathways. In 2021, San Miguel Corporation submitted an unsolicited proposal to build a 19-kilometer, 6-lane elevated expressway on top of the Pasig River to solve traffic in Metro Manila, despite it causing great harm to the river's ecology and its surrounding communities. Green spaces mitigate the effects of flooding, especially within urban areas. Our urban rivers and our other bodies of water cools our cities and reduces the urban heat island effect. And advocating for safe, humane, inclusive transportation means investing in resilient green infrastructure. For the longest time, our government has been prioritizing inefficient solutions to the transport crisis. There's a systemic inequity in how we have been allocating our national budget in transport, with only 1% allocated for road-based transport. And it also means incentivizing greener modes of transport. We have been witnessing our leaders backtrack from the progress we have made in our active transport infrastructure, with cities slowly removing their dedicated bike lanes or implementing imprudent regulations on electric modes of transport, such as light electric vehicles or LEVs. We call on our champions and leaders in the Philippines worldwide to support youth-led climate actions in cities, especially in high-risk countries such as ours. We hold the national governments and private entities accountable for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and fulfilling their climate pledges. We echo local and global climate and urge countries to follow through on their commitments in developing secure data infrastructure and enhancing collaboration with stakeholders on the ground to effectively assess this risk and vulnerabilities from climate change, recognizing, supporting, and working with the efforts of young leaders who are committed to creating climate resilient communities, institutionalizing stakeholder engagement in climate policy making and planning processes, ensuring meaningful participation of marginalized communities. And lastly, investing in resilient, sustainable infrastructure for proactive and preventive climate action to prevent our cities and our people from climate-induced disasters. We join the call of our environmental defenders in holding our leaders accountable to ensure a transition that is equitable and just in the transport sector. As the Philippines navigates our climate negotiations on COP29, we assert that it is a grave injustice that we who are least responsible for the climate crisis will bear the brunt of its consequences. We need our climate polluters to pay up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. And lastly, we have Mr. Cheng Pagulayan from Oxfam Philippines.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, maybe in the Philippines. So to just link, whatever what was discussed by my fellow panel about just transition in the Philippines, our current context is also linked it with what's happening at COP29, where the Just Transition Work Program is being negotiated, and it's expected that tonight at midnight Baku time will be the new text will be released. And what Just Transition Work Program is, it's about equity, social justice, human rights, and international cooperation, where this work program must deliver concrete, actionable outcomes and must go beyond the dialogues that it has promised previously. Yes, dialogues are important to share, best practices at the national level, but it's also more important that resources flow directly to the transitioning away from fossil fuels and phasing in of renewables. That ensures and also ensure that the process is inclusive and equitable, that leaves no one behind. The discussions of the Just Transition Work Program, this COP29, is important in operationalizing the Just Transition Roadmap and framework that the Philippine government is developing at the moment, because Just Transition must maximize international and domestic resources to ensure that our transition to a more regenerative and sustainable society is appropriately funded and appropriately financed through these sources. Our offer, to our parties here at COP is that they look at the Just Transition Work Program as a catalytic platform for countries to actually transition away from extractive industries. And it is a catalytic platform that would bear concrete, actionable outcomes in the lead up to COP30 in Belém, Brazil, where we can maximize an agreement process for submission of concrete actions that parties want to do together for the work program. So these submissions, no, this is an offer to the parties, including most especially the global north countries, that these submissions for the work program can be compiled, and in the upcoming bond intersessionals, it can be negotiated again. It should be reviewed, the submissions of concrete actions to the work program. And at COP30, where the dialogues are expected to end, we should also review, and there should be an agreement on a decision containing a package of concrete outcomes on just transition. So this is something, at the end game of COP29, we wish that parties agree on, and this is a procedural, approach, but I think it's we don't rush things, and we should be able to get all the suggestions from parties, especially from those in the global south who are recipient to the impacts of the climate crisis and are also expected to bear the brunt of the extractive industry, that the transitioning away and and phasing in of renewables are expected to cause. So I think that's how we can maximize the negotiations and how it could also benefit, the Philippines in terms of adequately funding and adequately resourcing the just transition roadmap of our country. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Cheng. I do appreciate the presence of Attorney Gia and our steering committee members. Thank you for coming and also helping the Philippine delegation in the just transition process. Thank you. And there is a video recording which is also live, will be forwarded to our media friends who are now actually doing their homework and deadline for the following days coverage. But in closing, the Action Klima Pilipinas and partner allies have come up with a joint position paper on the launching of the Philippine just transition roadmap. It's not really a roadmap yet, but it's a kickoff event, and they come up with a plan for the roadmap of the Philippines for just transition. Be that as it may, the fact is the Philippine civil society has already met last year to discuss the just transition and other issues involved. So we have guiding principles for what just transition is all about, and I think we counted 10, just 10 or 9. No? So first we have ecological integrity, inclusion, equity, rights-based, gender equality, decent, safe, and secure work, good governance, climate ambition, and alignment with sustainable development goals. So these guiding principles paved the way in coming up with a joint position on just transition in the Philippines. So if you still have more insights from our colleagues, Ray, from our indigenous peoples representatives, we still have more insights on just transition, although these have been already included in the joint position. So I would like to thank the panel for this third media briefing of the Philippine CSOs, now specifically on just transition. And we hope that tonight we'll be able to see something from the text which corresponds or complement with our positions. Thank you, everyone, and see you again perhaps tomorrow or the next day for our last coordination meeting.